There is this saying in English, and I'm going to elaborate on it. And the saying goes like this. There are two ways to have the tallest building in town. Either you actually build the tallest building, or you tear all the other higher buildings down. So this saying may explain the following. You either make it and actually manifest something that outshines others, or you need to shut down the operations of others so that people won't notice your insignificance. Now, no human being is insignificant. That's a worldly way of thinking. However, that British saying, or maybe it's from the United States, I'm not sure. As far as I know, it's British. That saying shows that worldly people think in such a way. So with worldly people, it goes like this. You are either an asset to their relief, or you are a potential threat. That's why worldly people have this phrase, I don't know him, or I don't know you. What they mean is, I have no leverage over you. Knowing someone in the world means having a leverage over them. If you work at a gasoline station and there you have the boss who's there once in a while, he may tell his wife that he knows you. And you think, huh? I barely talk to the guy. What he means is that he has a leverage over you. He knows that you need that job because without that job you can't pay rent. And he observed you, so he knows how to trick you. So he knows how to trick you into doing what he wants. He has a leverage somewhere. So in the world, knowing equals having a leverage over someone. When you cooperate with someone and they have no leverage over you, they don't know you. To know someone simply means I have a leverage. That is why in the world, people don't want to deal that much with strangers. Haven't you noticed that even in the present day, modern age, with instant communication, through all the technology we have, that people tend to be closed off from outsiders? It is because those on the inside, you know how to trick them. You know their weaknesses. You know their strengths. That's why you have a leverage over them. The stranger, you don't really know what you're dealing with. So how do you know you have a leverage? Worldly people are obsessed with holding on to their leverage. That is why you have this sodomite military hierarchy that governs the world. Why? Because worldly people turn on each other for the preservation of their leverage. You see this in families, even in marriages. You see this in kindergarten. Fallen mankind cannot take it when they have no control. A leverage is not the same as control, but in the world they confuse leverage for control because they're obsessed with controlling things. So understand that many people out there will not deal with you nor interact with you. I'm not even talking about being involved in a business or in a project. I'm talking just communicating with you, saying hi or saying bye. There are many people out there. I'm not talking about percentages. I'm talking about absolute numbers. There are many people out there that will not interact with you unless they have a leverage over you. That is what you need to understand. Because understand the following here. In the world, people use their leverage to get out of uncomfortable circumstances. And there's nothing wrong with using your leverage to get out of uncomfortable circumstances. But in the world, those uncomfortable circumstances are only uncomfortable because worldly people have a fallen way of thinking. So worldly people don't want to face their defect. So they want a leverage to either blame someone else or to flee from a situation without having to give any account. That's how worldly people are. And when they can't flee nor blame, they escalate. And nobody wants an escalation. That's why worldly people, this is a pattern you'd see worldwide. If you have a group and someone is made an outsider, others tend to join the accusation. Why? Because when all the negative attention goes to the target, that means all others are relieved. Let me give a practical example. Let's say you have a high school and you have a blonde girl picking on a ginger girl. Now, the others around are not involved in the conflict. There is no conflict to begin with. You have the blonde girl having issues projecting on the ginger one. But now, because she's emitting negative attention to the ginger girl, the other girls tend to join her in what she's doing to the ginger girl. Because here's how it goes. If those others would call her to her account and tell her, Lisa, let's say her name's Lisa, what are you doing? Being so angry with Francine. What did Francine do to you? If others would put her in check, on that moment, she will not do anything. But she'll be upset. And she'll feel more pain because she has been confronted. And she'll either explode on that moment, or she'll explode and later she'll act out against them. Worldly people, they know this of one another, that they don't like, they really don't like to be challenged. They hate it with all that's in them. So worldly people, when there is contention, they tend to join the contention with the hope that they will not be a target. They'll even blame the target for being victimized as long as it means that all the violence will go to the target. That's how a lot of worldly people are. That's how they also gain a leverage in society. Because in society, which is based on violence, you need to join the violence in order to have a leverage. Because once you've joined the violence, you now have a grip on the violators. Because you are enabling the violators. So the violators become dependent on you. And you can use this dependency to trick them into doing what you want. That's how it goes in society. So understand that when you don't allow others to have an undue advantage over you, you will become a target. It is important to realize these things about society, because way too many believers think that society operates how they were taught in high school. What you were told in high school is just indoctrination. It's not how society really works. It all comes down to preserving one's leverage at someone else's expense. That's what society is. So think about this. Anytime you advance and succeed in any area of life, that means you're gaining a leverage, you're gaining an advantage somewhere. But look at this. When you gain an advantage, others lose a grip on you. Let me give an example. Let's say that you have a 9-to-5 job and you're tired all the time. You need that job. So of course you behave. Of course you get along with opinions of others, no matter how horrible their opinions are. You have to. You also join gossip. You do all of that because if you don't join the toxic climate at work, you will lose that job and you'll be homeless and you don't have any other option. And because you're now part of the toxicity, people can also use that to blackmail you. So others have quite some leverage over you for the mere fact that you need that income. Let's say now you decide to invest in the stock market somewhere in Southeast Asia, because there are many entrepreneurs that start their own business and looking for investors. Let's say you invested like 200 euros. A year later, you have revenue of 40,000 euros. Now, do you seriously think that all those people who have a leverage over you because you needed that income, do you seriously think they're going to be happy with you having those 40,000 euros? They will not. Because now their leverage will fade away. Now you will have more options that they can't control. So what happens when they're losing their leverage? They now have to treat you in a different way. And the more leverage you gain, the more influence you'll have, and the more to say you have, and you'll be able to shut other things down. When you were only dependent on that income, they could shut down your conversations, they could ignore you, they could get away with a lot of bad stuff because you needed that job. But now that you're less dependent on that job, they have to treat you in a different way, and now you're able to call them to account. If you've called them to account in the past, you would have lost your job because it would have made life hard on you. But now you're able to call them to an account, and you're able to just leave. And when you just leave, what happens? They feel rejected because you don't put up with their toxicity anymore. So when they hear that you have extra income, they can't sleep at night because they don't know what you will do with your advantage. They use their advantage at your expense. And they know very well that it's something that should have never happened. They know very well that they should have repented from it. And they know very well that once they admit that they did all of this to you, that they are obliged to comply with justice. And to comply with justice means giving up some of the advantages they're clinging onto. They don't want to do all of that. They don't want to expose themselves as hypocrites and as unreliable people. They don't. So they want to excuse their behavior by having their reasons for doing what they're doing to you. So when you gain in leverage, they will fight it. And when they can't stop your leverage, they'll look for ways to kill you. Either directly, or if they're afraid of doing it directly because they don't want to go to jail, they will do it in an indirect way. By messing around with your income, messing around with your reputation, or by conducting smear campaigns in the hope that others will turn on you and attack you. So now they want others to do the dirty job for them. Why? Because your leverage means that now they need to deal with stuff. And if they invested against you, and now despite their investment against you, you are, let me say, you are thriving, all the other people that witness them agreeing against you can now tell them, you resisted this guy or this girl, and look at them, where are you? So now they will face the backlash of you overcoming their violence. So they don't want to go through that backlash. So they want to keep the situation as it is, you being victimized by them and them having an excuse for victimizing you. The moment they can't do this anymore, they become desperate. And once they are in their desperation and they can't find any relief, they can't shut you down, it will turn into homicidal rage. Some people will literally destroy themselves just to prove a point against you. Some people, to conduct a smear campaign against you, to hinder you, they'll even sacrifice their own sanity and their own well-being, and often also the sanity and well-being of those around them. When you read the New Testament, there's a part where the Apostle Paul had haters that made a vow unto themselves that they will not eat nor drink until they've destroyed Paul. Now, if you don't eat nor drink for a day, you'll get sick unless you are in perfect health. But even then, after 2 or 3 days, you need to eat and you need to drink. Or better said, you need to drink every day. You can go without food for 2 or 3 days, but you need to drink every day. You need to drink every day, and you may miss food for 2 or 3 days, but if you miss food for 2 days, you're already in a bad shape. So now you have people with mortal bodies that preferred committing collective suicide than having Paul continuing in ease. That's how bitterness caused them to become. That's what bitterness will do to you. Bitterness will make you into a suicidal maniac. That is what bitterness will do to you. Bitterness will cause you to perceive your own demise as a more attractive option than actually processing things and moving on. So in this case, Paul had a group of people that agreed, let's say they made a suicidal pact, that they'll destroy themselves as long as it can hinder Paul. You have such people today also. They will become suicidal maniacs, putting themselves and others around them in harm's way just to prove a point against you. You have a lot of such people today. You have them. So don't be mistaken. They are around and you will encounter them, and such groups will be formed against you as a believer. But here's the good news. As a believer, you walk by faith and you overcome everything that's formed against you. Remember, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. The weapons can be formed, they can be aimed at you, they can be fired at you, but they will not prosper. Whether it's physical weapons or social weapons or financial weapons, whatever weapon it is, it will not prosper. It will not succeed in its purpose. Just realize that when it comes to preserving one's leverage, worldly people are willing to endure terrorism, crime, collective violence. They're willing to be lied to. They're willing to be scammed. They're willing to be exploited as long as they can have their leverage. That's what worldly people are. Now, why am I talking about this? You need to understand how the world around you works. The world around you does not work based on norms and values, even though norms and values are part of how the system operates. It's not based on pure self-interest either, because worldly people are self-destructive, so they're not operating in their best interest. The world is really a competition for who has the leverage, who has the right to violate others and get away with it. That's what the world is based upon. Now, there are decent people in the world, don't get me wrong, but even the decent people are enablers, often without them being aware of it, because they support values of the world that don't add up. So what do you do with all of this as a believer? You make sure you use your leverage in line with Christ. Because when you do that, you will increase your leverage, because the Most High wants believers to outdo unbelievers in all areas of life. Believers are the group that should have the main leverage on the earth in all areas of life. That is God's will. So as a believer, as an individual believer, you must agree with this. So you must receive the leverage God is giving you. Don't be like the prophet Daniel that refused political and financial leverage because he didn't want to deal with the conflicts of his day. The prophet Daniel, he received leverage because God manipulated the circumstances in such a way that he had a leverage over the emperor of the Babylonian Empire. And the Babylonian emperor, the Nebuchadnezzar, in exchange, conceded political power and financial authority onto Daniel. So it was God behind the scenes that manipulated things in such a way that Daniel would get political and financial leverage in Babylonian society. This was meant for him to use his leverage for the benefit of the Judean people. But what did Daniel do? Daniel did not want to deal with the conflicts that would come as a result of him having all that leverage. So he preferred staying on the background and interpreting dreams. And he allowed 3 friends of his to deal with the political and financial, let me say, the political and financial leverage that he received. Don't you know there are people out there that refuse to be blessed? Oh, there. Let me tell you, there are people out there that refuse to be blessed because they know that there will be resistance against the leverage, that there will be all kinds of stuff that you need to overcome. They don't want all of that. So they come up with excuses, just like the prophet Daniel did. Do not be like the prophet Daniel, because the prophet Daniel went along with Babylonian society, and in his old age, that same Babylonian society, which was now part of Medo-Persian society, turned on him, and they thrown him in a lion's den. That's how it goes in this world. Don't think that by pleasing and appeasing the world that the world will be on good terms with you. It won't. As a believer, it will never be on good terms with you. Even unbelievers cannot be guaranteed that if they get along with the world, that the world will be at peace with them. So, always walk by faith and realize God wants you to be the head and not the tail. So, agree with